Good morning for me. Good evening to you. Thanks for joining, Maxim.
Hello, hello. Good evening for me indeed. Hello.
Happy Thursday. How are you doing today?
Good, good, good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for joining. I've been using your tools for a while, and glad to get you on to finally talk about some of them and see about some of the fun capabilities they're able to do for a lot of the I think people's workflows pertaining to Power BI.
Well, glad to hear that you're using it. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
absolutely. And the came about you through I think a lot of the work that you've done with Kurt Bueller and the projects that you've collaborated on. But I think a good starting point for a lot of this for me and my guest is to give you a chance to introduce yourself a little bit. Feel free to share any information or anecdotes about either the stuff that you do professionally or just any information about yourself, and we'll kind of get started from there with some introductions.
Well, actually, I hope some of the people know me or might know me from my YouTube channel, which I also have. A bit smaller than yours, but still some audience. So some people might know me from YouTube. Some people might know me from the tools that I developed before, SemanticOps MCP. It's Tyndall Explorer or DAXBench. And however, if I had to summarize in short my career, I have been working for 18 years in IT now. Yes, I know. Still looking good. Still looking fresh. Last 10 years is in a way, or we're connected with data and data analytics somehow. And the last few years, focusing on consulting in Microsoft Fabric and Power BI field. So this is my focus currently. And today we're discussing SemanticOps. It's one of the tools that I developed alongside others that I do.
Now, out of curiosity, I like to ask this about anybody who's built tooling. So, like, what inspired you to start going and creating some of this yourself? What was the gaps that you're noticing, and where you decided, like, you know what, I'm just going to go build my own?
Well, I always been early adopter of everything. I started using LLMs quite early, so I hit all of the walls I can hit. Back when I started developing specifically MCP for Power BI, there wasn't any around. It was way before Microsoft released theirs. But I saw potential for agentic workflows and automation. As I like to say, if I have to do it multiple times and it can be automated, I should automate it. And basically, that's why I started doing so. That's why I developed.
I think it's a similar thing that's with any of them, right? It's like for a lot of the little mini tools that I built. I know DAX Studio with Darren, similar thing. Tabular Editor with Daniel. It's like, I don't like my current workflow, and like these things annoy me. How do I solve my annoyances to make my job faster? So the many measure killer is probably the same thing. I'm sure with Gregor is like I need to do this for clients, and I don't have an easy way to do that. So the best tools are usually by good developers that are solving their own needs and then realize, oh, other people could use this.
Fair. I agree with that. And I do like optimizing workflows. Sometimes it's optimization for the sake of optimization. Sometimes it's actually valid.
Exactly. Well, what's it like? It's either there's a quote of like it's either a coder or a developer, but like they're great at spending 12 hours creating a solution that saves them 5 minutes a day.
That can be true as well. That can be true. I have some of those tools.
Well, a lot of that, as I like to say, is like it's less about the time saving. A little bit is about the learnings along the way, and you get a lot more information and knowledge about a particular topic or a way something works. So it's a knowledge gain, not just a time saver in those situations.
Look, everyone needs a hobby. Sometimes it's just about the process itself,
Yeah, exactly.
and feeling like you're creating something. For example, I do photography, and I just enjoy the process. I just see things in different light than most people do. Whenever I walk around with someone and stop to take a photo, usually everyone asks me, what do we see here? Because I see it differently. Same with the tools and automation and developing. You enjoy the process and you see something different in this. You just ride in the wave.
Exactly.
This way.
Well,
However,
sometimes, yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Just
Sorry.
just a little
please.
note here with these new tools with LLMs, Cloud Code, and whatnot. I actually posted an article a few weeks ago, maybe months ago, about titled "New Type of Addiction," which it creates because you feel ever powerful and efficient, that you can create anything and everything, and you start to chase the high of creation. So
a bit of it is that, but as I like to tell a lot of people getting started is because you can do anything that can be done digitally can be done with LLMs, but it's really good at getting you 80% of the way there in like 30 minutes, but then it takes a week to get the last 20% because you start to hit those little snags and then it's like 2 a.m. and like, all right, I need to go to bed, but like I have momentum. I have to finish this. I see that happening. I swear that is that is a learning experience that almost every single person, when they first start deep diving into like Claude Code or something, almost always go through, where there's a couple of nights where like I was stuck on this one thing and I couldn't go to bed until I fixed it. Like, yep, we have all had that addiction at some point. Digressions aside, though, and wanting to rein in on the idea around LLMs and some of the extensibility tools that you built today, where would you like to get started on the conversation around the tooling we'll be getting into with the MCP?
So I think I would like to start explaining how I perceive LLMs. That's the explanation I'm usually using, and I will have a few slides just to make it visual a bit. I like things to be visual.
Yes.
Then maybe we can talk about some of the myth about CLIs versus MCP, and then we can do a live demo for the MCP itself.
Absolutely. If you're ready, I can go ahead and flip the screen share on.
Let's do it.
Excellent. Here we are.
Alrighty. So the first thing I will start with is when I explain LLMs to someone who just was recently introduced to them or just started working with them, I usually explain it, imagine a tunnel or pinball tunnel, and you throw a ball there. And by default, this is very wide tunnel with a lot of holes in it. This is your default experience with LLMs, or basically their non-deterministic nature is that ask it 10 times something, and likely you will get 10 sometimes slightly different answers, sometimes very different answers to the same question. So this is what is meant by their non-deterministic nature. Now, obviously, when you try to use it in professional workflows, what you would like to do, or what you would like to have, is to have more predictable experience. And you can achieve that more predictable experience with a combination of a few things. Basically, it's harnesses. So Cloud Code is a well-known harness to work with LLMs. There are others as well. So it's a combination of harnesses, prompting, RAG, so augmentation with some data or documentation, and some tools, some additional tools. And the combination of those allows you to narrow the tunnel, plug those holes, and make this experience more predictable. Meaning Now, instead of getting 10 different answers, you will likely get, I don't know, 3 different answers, or maybe just one answer, ideally. Ideally, that's what you're targeting. Predictable experience.
Exactly.
Before I move on, any questions here? Any comments?
Well, and I guess the for predictability, is this just in terms of the quality of the output, or are you addressing at all anything related to also just kind of hallucinations or partial assumptions drawn from partial information, which both can be problems with LLMs?
That as well. That as well. So there are hallucinations. There are also just unpredictability of the output.
Mhm.
The tree of choices. At some point, it can decide to prioritize this branch, and some other conversation, it will prioritize different branch. What you want to have is predictable output, ideally without hallucinations. LLMs are getting better at this, yet they still hallucinate. And therefore, you still have to use combination of those listed on the slide.
Ones that I've started to get more often is I don't know if I'd call it a hallucination or not, but it makes partial. It draws conclusions with incomplete data. So it's not, what it's saying is not wrong, but it's incorrect because it didn't actually review stuff. So I've had to put quite a few prompts in because it's saying something is a certain thing, or like, I think this is like, all right, so hold on, did you actually go check the file and like do a full audit? Okay, well, let me go do that. It scans it like, okay, so I had 2 pieces of evidence, which would lead to a conclusion of this based off of that evidence. But now that I've done a thorough review, that is now incorrect. So I feel like it's a new type of hallucination, which is harder to spot because it seems more logical rather than purely making up a number. But I've had to put gatekeeping on that a lot more because it likes to do lightweight scans for like a cost saving thing. It's always trying to save money. And so I've had to be like, no. Anytime you ever tell me something based off of evidence that you found, I need you to be like 100% confident on that. Spend tokens. Never tell me something that you are guessing in any capacity.
When people do it to each other, it's called gaslighting. LLMs are good at it.
Yes, very much so. Like, yeah, I had one time where I think it was because I was just working on a client project, and it was like 9 out of 10 bullet points were all accurate. I think number 10 was technically like in the file of whatever that was said, and like so like I've now had like, all right, yeah, anytime we're gonna like draft an email or anything else of like some conclusions that I'm drawing based off of work that I'm doing, I need you to go and vet this 1,000% and or give me linkages and point me to where the evidence is, any conclusions that are drawn, so I can validate this myself. Because I don't trust you because you gaslight.
Yeah,
yeah,
that happens.
Yeah,
that still happens.
Exactly, it still does. Yes, any tool is only as good as the person who wields it, right?
True.
Good.
Okay. Important topic. There is a lot of debate, and obviously I might be biased, right? Because currently SemanticOps comes as an MCP, albeit I do have CLI behind the scenes. However, there are a few things or a few myths which I hear quite often, particularly on LinkedIn, and usually they're not actually grounded in truth, at least as far as I see. So I wanted to discuss those and maybe bust some myth. First and foremost, CLIs are more efficient, token efficient. Usually, when people are doing this comparison, they choose the worst MCP out there. The worst MCPs out there, the worst MCPs out there are usually just wrappers on top of APIs. So if there are 50 endpoints, there will be 50 MCP tools. This is, and of course, it will be a token hog, because before, all of those tools were loaded into context and therefore taking a lot of context right away, even if you are not using those tools. However, well-designed MCPs don't have to consume a lot of tokens. Another thing related to token consumption is that usually comparison with CLIs is done against CLIs which are part of the training data set. So those are widely known CLIs like GitHub. So they're usually comparing GitHub MCP and GitHub CLI. The thing is, when LLMs are being trained, obviously, GitHub is well-known CLI, used a lot. It's part of the training data set, and LLM by default knows how to use it. However, if it's custom-made, let's call it custom-made CLI, something internal, LLM will not know how to use it by default, which means it will need to discover how to use it, which means it will have to use more tokens to do so. Go through everything which CLI can do, figure out how CLI is structured, etc., how to properly do an operation, and LLM will be spending tokens on discovery process. MCPs are different in that regard because LLM gets description right away. Right, this tool can do this and that, and it have to be called in this fashion. So this is myth number one. If you're working with some well-known CLI, likely yes, your experience token consumption will be smaller. However, if you're working with with one-off operations, basically, if you need to edit something, I don't know, add one measure, okay, likely CLI will consume less. However, if for longer operations, let's say if you're running agentic workflow where you're building model from scratch, that's where MCPs can be more efficient. And even Anthropic, who created MCP standard, they themselves say that there is place for both, for CLIs and for MCPs, depending on your workflows and what you're doing. But important to say that there are a lot of badly designed MCPs. There are also well-designed MCPs, like Figma, or like SemanticOps, because it actually does not, with all of the tools and capabilities that it provides, the impact on the context window is less than 10% for typical 200K tokens. So currently, it only takes around 16K tokens. Okay, actually, I covered second point as well. Now, myth number three, everyone thinks that all of the tools load it into context right away. It hasn't been the case for months now in most of the tools. What currently Visual Studio Code and Claude Desktop or Claude Code do, they don't load all of the tools MCP provides into context window. Instead, they expose search tool, and when LLM needs to call MCP, it just searches through the tools. So it's kind of similar process to CLIs. So the days
they're essentially calling like a tool library, right? Like it's you're providing it a series of extended functions that I can use usually with a set of instructions of saying use this for this, use that for that. Yes,
correct. But the thing is, again, it does not impact in most tools, in most clients that work with MCPs, it does not anymore impact your context window until you actually start using the MCP, and LLM triggers the search process. It finds the tool which fits the which fits the goal, and then it loads the tool.
Yeah, that was some updates, I think, last year, because it used to always
It
load,
used to.
and
It
now it's
used to.
doing lazy load, basically.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Lazy load, yes. And both Visual Studio Code does it right now, and Claude, all of the Anthropic tools do it, and ChatGPT or Codex does it as well. So
now curiously, so you've said there's plenty of poorly built MCPs. There are a lot less CLIs. MCPs are much easier for like an individual developer to build. Like, you can build an MCP for yourself in 30 to 60 minutes. CLIs require a bit more work. So I'm wondering, like, what are the percentage of like MCPs that have been like iffy or bad versus like the amount of actual CLIs that have been developed that are iffy or bad?
I don't know the percentage.
Or just like which would be high if you were
there are millions of them, right? I haven't tried all of them.
Sure.
When you say it's easier to develop MCP, is because by default most of the MCP or a lot of MCPs are API wrappers, right? So you have I don't know, Microsoft APIs to access Outlook, and there are many endpoints. And what people do by default is they just put a MCP wrapper on top of it, and they have 50 tools connecting to 50 endpoints, which is definition of badly designed MCP. This is, and so it's easy to start. However, if you want to design MCP well, it takes way more time. Right, I have been working on mine for almost a year now, I would say. Yes, it provides way more capabilities. It's not just a wrapper on top of the API. It's still a lot of work. MCP is just a protocol, right? There is always standing behind it. MCP
it's like an app too. Like, you could have Flappy Bird as an app, or you could have, Microsoft Excel. Like the wrapper can contain anything inside of it. One function or 1,000. Yeah.
And it's actually connected to what MCPs are. Basically, it's a connective tissue between LLMs and some tool or web service that you're using, whether Gmail, Google Calendar, or Power BI Desktop in this case. So it's just something which stands in the middle between your LLM and your tool, and then basically translates requests from one to another.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have I missed some myth?
I don't realize it.
There are actually a few more things related to this. I honestly believe that there is place for both. For example, MCPs can be hosted, unlike CLIs, which means people can connect to MCP remotely and from there do something. The way you do, for example, connect to Google Calendar in Claude, it's a remote MCP that they host, which cannot be done with CLIs because CLIs mostly running locally on your machine. MCPs can run both locally, but can also run remotely and support authorization. So, plus they provide some extra capabilities that CLIs usually by default do not. But this is another topic, way longer.
Exactly.
All right. Shall we do the demo?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Let me close this. Oh, actually, maybe I can do this one. Wait. Oh, no. So as I mentioned, I started developing MCP quite a long time ago, last year, way before there was something on the market. my goal was to automate, as usual, some routine operations, right? You and me probably have done hundreds of semantic models. There are things which we do all the time, which have to be done. And there, at some point, you want to automate it, right? Previously, it was done with, let's say, C# scripting in tabular editor. However, now in the age of LLMs, I wanted to chat to my model and tell it, or tell LLM what to do and for it to make it. So simple idea. That's how I started.
Yep.
After I developed the core, which allowed to basically alter semantic models from scratch fully with, I started thinking, hold on, let me rephrase that. Let me take a step back. While working with LLMs, using MCP, I noticed a lot of gaps, right? Yet models get better. As you mentioned, there are still gaps. Sometimes they assume things. Sometimes they misstate things. Sometimes they gaslight you. Sometimes they do something you don't want them to do, right? So I started thinking, what do I need to have to support more professional workflows, to get more predictable output, to get more desirable output, right? The way I actually wanted. And in addition to that, I was also talking to different people about, are they using it in their organizations? Why aren't they using it, right? Because I would say the adoption is still lagging at this point, particularly in bigger organizations, which are slower to adopt new things. I see that they're quite slow to jump on AI train. And the most often question that came up was about the data, because we, Power BI developers or Fabric developers, work with a lot of sensitive data. Sometimes it's personal data, HR data, sometimes it's supply chain data, sometimes it's financial data, or a lot of times it's financial data. All of this data, when you work with LLMs, being passed to LLMs, right? And therefore, a lot of organizations don't want to have their internal data leak. So that was one of the things which I tried to cover in commercial version, which I released sometime earlier this year. So this is one thing which I tried to address, in addition to all of the other things which we'll talk about. But anyways, enough with the presentations. Let's do the demo, the fun part. So I have here quite simple model for the sake of demoing. Here in Power BI Desktop running, I will be using Visual Studio Code and Copilot for now. I also have Claude if we need to. Let's do the simple thing and try to connect. SemanticOps MCP. Now, one thing which likely not a lot of people experienced, MCPs support UI. Some of the MCPs support UI. So in Visual Studio Code, it's not enabled by default. But if you want to have it, at least for SemanticOps, you have to enable it, this option, which I just, was too fast. MC apps. So look for MCP apps, enable, and then if MCP you work with supports UI, you will see it. Still experimental here. In Cloud Desktop, it's supported by default. It will show up by default. Show me connection. So just to show the example, how it looks like. For the most part, it's widget-like. Let's say so. Here it lists my desktop models. It also supports Power BI service. So I can log in, I can navigate through my tenant, and I can connect to some specific model through UI. Obviously, it's mostly when you're, for some operations, not for everything, for some operations, which might be more streamlined with clicking, right? Instead of typing, go to this workspace, open this model, you can just quickly connect.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And we're already connected to local desktop model. You can see here already that masking is on for personal data, P2, numeric masking is off. And I think that's where we can start with, because it's a sensitive topic. As I already mentioned, companies don't want to fit their data into LLMs. Therefore, there are two options that SemanticOps provides. It's personal data masking and numeric masking. Let's start with personal data. I have here a few tables, let's say with customer data and employees data, with date of birth, SNNs, etc., credit cards, phones, emails, etc. Likely something you want to keep private. And let's ask LLM to preview that data to see how it sees it with masking on. So preview.
I will say kick the zoom up just by one tick.
Come again?
On in VS Code, increase the magnification zoom in VS Code just by one. Perfect. There you go.
Good. Now, what's happening behind the scenes, right? Since MCP stands between Power BI Desktop or Power BI Service and LLM, since MCP serves the data to LLM, there is heuristics, which takes into account a lot of, let's say, signals based on the data. And if it detects that this data may be sensitive, it serves data to LLM in a masked way. So you can already see that emails come masked. Some
you need to unlock your iPhone first.
Sorry, Siri triggered.
You're good.
Employees' names are fully masked. This column, bank accounts, you can just see last 4 digits, and so on and so forth. Right. Moreover, I have been with every version, I have been improving heuristics. So it's not only works for US models or in English-based models, but also for other languages, regions, patterns, etc. Another thing which you might be wondering, but can it do so with DAX queries? Or maybe you are not wondering, but still, I'm going there.
Please, yes.
Basically, when I was thinking where data can be leaked, obviously, when you're previewing table data, okay, that's one place where data can leak. But also, since model can run DAX queries, it can also query different data through this way, which means you also need to mask data there. But this is way more complex because with DAX, you can, let's see, you can transform data in different ways. You can rename it, you can change data type, and so on and so forth. And somehow you need to trace through all of those transformations, you need to trace it back to source column, right? Happy to say that with previous release, I've also deployed DAX parser.
Okay, nice.
So far, until this moment, there are only few companies who has it. Microsoft, of course. Tabular, of course. They have been on the market for a while. And now me, or SemanticOps. So there is now built-in parser, which drives masking as well. So it can trace through DAX query column to the source, and if the source is sensitive, like email, it will mask it. I have here the example. Let me take it. So actually, wait, I have here. Let me display it so people can see it. It's, let's say, fairly complex DAX, at least not straightforward DAX, right? And we're taking email column. You see that it's been normalized and filtered, and then selected from this variable with different name. And this is the, what is this? What is wrong here? Oh, everything's fine. And so in the end, you get some different columns, which was processed in some fashion. And you need to trace it through all of those transformations to the source. So I will ask LLM to preview this DAX query, and hopefully, unless something broke, since last I checked it, it will mask email column. So let's ask it. Run this DAX query.
Like it's run.
Great. So it worked. It traced email column to the source.
Yeah.
And it masked a column. Now, obviously, all of that is best effort, right?
Yeah, of course.
There are cases where heuristics might make mistakes, might not work, etc. So you want also some tools where you can say, okay, I want to be sure this is masked, either this table or some specific columns, right? So let's take job title. Not very sensitive, but let's take it. Job title. What you can do here is, let me copy. Second. Of course. So another mode which I support is you can add, let's say, static metadata to your columns tables, which would tell MCP whether this table or column should be masked always, or, for example, should always be excluded. right? If it triggers on something you don't want it to trigger on, you can exclude it. So I will ask you to add annotation to force masking for job title column, and preview data after.
If you're done too, I'll have a couple of follow-up questions as well.
Sure.
Unlike masking and just security stuff. Okay.
Okay.
I do like when you
So-
can go through it, like it trips, like, oh, I had a dollar symbol or something, and like, hold on, let me try this. Okay, cool. Hey, now it's working.
Yeah. It made few mistakes while calling the tools, but it recovered in the end. So now, as you can see, job title fully masked. The great thing about that is once you deploy this model, everyone who connects to this model with the MCP, with the SemanticOps MCP, will have the same experience. So for everyone who works with this model, this column will be masked, or the specified table will be masked, or otherwise. So
some of this puts the responsibility on the human, which in certain scenarios we do need those. But I guess to a degree, the what's the rule between, or the difference between just asking it to do something which is more transient? Because as soon as like the instruction of what you ask it to do gets lost in the token context, it starts doing it again. As anybody who's worked with LLMs has experienced at some point, where it forgets an instruction. So I guess where does that line come on, like something that has to be enforced? Like it cannot do it 90% of the time. It has to do it 100% of the time. Or like this shouldn't be something that needs to be prompted. Like this needs to be done. You just like from out of the gate. So like kind of any thoughts on like really making sure that something gets enforced 100% of the time, or gets enforced automatically, if there's ways to set up either.
Yeah. I will get to this after masking.
Okay.
I
Perfect.
have something about this too.
Good.
But with regards to masking, so
Yeah.
just to close off this topic, there are two layers, right, to this. One is automatic, right? The heuristics. As I said, any heuristics is always his best effort. Even the best heuristics can make mistakes or cannot detect everything. So in addition to that, you have manual control to mask some sensitive data. And another great thing is that once you set it up, all of your teammates or anyone else who will be working with this model will have the same experience. You set it up once, and it's masked for everyone. Any questions before I move on?
I think just the one about the security a bit, but I think it sounds like you'll be getting to that next. So
yeah.
Cool.
I'll spend a bit just on numeric masking. So you can also enable numeric masking. For example, you don't want to leak revenue, etc. What it does is it generates random coefficient every session, and then any numbers. Again, there is heuristics. So, for example, your IDs shouldn't be changed, but if it's some financial data, then it will be multiplied by this coefficient, and therefore your raw financial data will not be leaked to the LLM. Meanwhile, it does not happen to percentages because I wanted to keep still keep the analytical part, right? That you can still analyze trends, whatnot, even with numeric masking enabled. It works in similar fashion. You can force it. You can exclude certain columns, tables, similarly to personal data masking. All right. Moving on. Okay. Now, to your question, how do I control what AI can or cannot do? I have a peel for that as well. Ointment. I have ointment for that too. What I came up with is policy engine,
Okay.
where you can set up certain rules which AI has to follow. And let me show me policy bundles. While it does a thing, so the simplest example, right? While you're adding a measure, while it creates the measure, you want to make sure that it always adds dynamic formatting string, right? You can obviously prompt for it, right? Tell it at the beginning of every session or during the session to add dynamic format strings. But we both know that sometimes LLMs are forgetful. The closer you get to the end of the context window, the more forgetful they are, right? And it's part of this example which I gave, narrowing the tunnel to make more predictable experience, right? So there is policy engine, and you can set up different custom rules, from simple ones like whenever a measure gets created, it should deny unless this measure has dynamic format string, right? Or more complex ones. For example, what I have few predefined policy packs which you can apply for your model. And one of them disallows deleting objects if there are dependent objects on them. So if you have some measure which is being referenced by other measures, or it will not allow to delete it.
That's only doing it from the model, right? Not the report layer.
Yes. Important part. Yeah. Important to point out, SemanticOps focuses strictly on semantic model.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't have access to visual layer. Currently, visual layer is inaccessible when model is running. Let's put it this way. At the runtime. So yes.
Would that give you an option to delete? So if it noticed there is sales and sales adjusted, you try to delete sales. Would it be like sales is referenced by sales adjusted? Would you like to delete both, or would it just deny it?
No. You can set it to deny it. You can set it to ask you permission.
Oh, okay. So it prompts you, and then you could say delete this first, then delete the thing that no longer has dependency. Okay.
Yeah. So we can try to set up. Actually, do I have any setup? Do I have any setup already? So there is, speaking of differences between CLIs and MCPs, another thing is MCPs support so-called elicitations. It's a fancy word for approvals, right? Unfortunately, not all of the clients support this. For example, Claude Desktop does not support it. Claude Code supports it. VS Code supports elicitations. What elicitations do is they trigger confirmation from you as a user when in certain situations. Now, with Policy Engine, you can decide what those situations are. And here, let's see what I have here. So I have some policies set up already to deny deletions and request confirmation for changing masking. Okay. What I notice sometimes, taking a step back a bit, what I notice sometimes when I ask Claude something, and it could not do it with masking on, it would just go into settings and turn off the masking. Obviously, you want this process to be controlled, right? So ideally, I as a user, I want to confirm, yes, it's okay currently to turn off masking for whatever is that you're doing, instead of it running wild and doing so. So let's try deleting something, and let's see whether it will work. So currently,
Yes.
there are few rules already in place, right? So it should block all of the deletions. So let's see, I have some measures here. Let's try delete some measure. Where are the measures? Sales. Okay. Average discount. Let's try deleting average discount and see whether it will be allowed to. Try to delete average discount measure. Okay. Anyways, it blocked the
Out of
deletion.
curiosity, like, so it, so the reason it failed to delete, so does it both know that there is a dependency, but it's not actually aware of what the dependency is yet? Because it's checking, so it's like, I got a denial, but I don't know why yet, so let me review. So it seems like there's almost like two halves of it, one that knows why and the other that doesn't.
True, fair. That's actually on me, right? To maybe improve it, instead of just telling it that it's failed to delete, explain why.
Yeah, oh yeah, because
that's first, there is a policy, this
okay,
is the
gotcha.
policy, and it applies because it's dependent on this and that. So
yeah, okay.
So it
Cool.
can be improved, but even without that, it went and checked impact analysis itself and figured that, okay, this average discount measure is used in perspective, sales analysis perspective. And because of that, it denied removal.
Yep.
So
a quick question from just the chat on this, just while it's up. Is there any trial or community version of Semantic Ops MCP available for those of us who want to test the pro governance features in a real world environment before committing?
Okay, not currently. There is free version which allows you to do all of the modeling operations. Pro version comes either with monthly subscription or yearly subscription. There is currently no trial for the pro version. If you'd like to try it, the easiest way to do it is to do monthly subscription.
Okay, excellent. Cool.
All right, coming back to that. So, and we're actually touching, so, okay, I'm jumping from topic to topic.
No worries.
So with Policy Engine, you can set up different kind of rules, can be sophisticated, can be easy. There are default packs which can get you started, right? For, let me scroll back. So either those impact-aware deletions to block those, if that to happen, or let's actually set up confirmation. Let's test the confirmation. I think I have set up for masking. I just want to show how elicitations work. Go and disable, disable P2 masking. And ideally, it should trigger confirmation from me that I'm okay doing this operation. Or not. Wait, do we have confirmation policy? If not, okay, it was disabled.
No worries. There you go.
Okay, let's try. So try to change masking to enable now. Okay. It wouldn't be a live demo without
Of course.
issues, right? Okay, now finally it set it up correctly. So the hurdle happened because I renamed tool from manage memory to manage preferences. The rule was set up for older tool. In the end, it figured it out. But anyways, this is elicitation. So it asks for my confirmation to, in this case, re-enable masking. You can do it. You can do the same for, I don't know, deleting tables, right? This is something I'm personally not very comfortable unless I have backups and maybe it's a throwaway model, right? In case it wants to delete some tables, I want to confirm that first. Masking, changing settings for masking, again, as well. If I have masking on, there is likely a reason for that. And therefore, I want to have it under control when it decides to turn it off, right? So through this, it cannot override elicitations. But again, important is that it's not supported by all of the clients, right? So now we're in Visual Studio Code and it's supported. In Cloud Code, it's supported. In Cloud Desktop, it's not supported. So you will not see it. Anyways, let's allow it. And it doesn't know, actually. So the model itself does not see elicitations. So it thinks that it's just went through. It doesn't know that I confirmed.
Okay.
It doesn't have this context. Okay, so that's policy engine. You can set up custom rules for all of the operations which MCP supports, and you can decide whether allow some operations by default, deny them by default, or request confirmation if needed and if supported, right? And you can apply it from operations like deletions, but also to tailor to your workflow and get predictable output when you are creating the model, like, I don't know, having descriptions for all of the measures or tables that you create, having dynamic format string, having data type assigned or summarization assigned to all of the columns. So you can go really granular with those rules. You can go really granular with those rules.
I think there's a layer of prompting you can do on the top of some of these things, which I think goes back to some of our conversation that we had earlier, where a lot of people don't realize that if you want to set up a tool, you don't even necessarily have to set it up yourself. You can just give a link to Claude and like, set this up for me. I think similar to some of this is if you had questions around like, what are, here are my concerns. What are some things in this tool that you'd recommend I set up or enforce to, meet these requirements that I have around PII or anything else? And I'm sure it could probably list out for you like, oh, I would recommend doing X, Y, and Z. Would you like me to help set that up for you? You can probably do that as well in this thing.
Yes, yeah. It's a good point. You can always ask LLM about the tool itself, right? And it will walk you through what tool can do. And you can basically brainstorm with it, how to set it up, what to set it up, etc. So it's a good point. Sometimes people do forget that you can just ask LLM. But there are also built-in packs which provide some default capability, already get you started, like blocking all of the deletions, etc.
Yep.
All right. Since we touched upon impact analysis, it was part of the deletions and denials. There is also impact analysis tool, right? When you change something or when you delete something like measure, you want to know whether it's referenced somewhere else. Therefore, there is impact analysis tool. Likely people are familiar with Measure Killer. I'm sure.
Yep.
A lot of developers know and use it. I use it myself as well. This is something similar, again, focused on semantic model layer, and it takes into account all of the metadata. So if your column is referenced as a calendar, or as a date table, or as a sort column, it will know that, and you can check for impact for any object in your model. So
yeah, and some of the interconnected webs of like impact analysis can be a lot sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, and actually, it's not the first time that I work with impact analysis. There is, I'm not sure if you know, Tyndall Explorer project, which I did, which allows you to see all of the dependencies between measures in your model. So obviously, I have some history with lineage.
Say like and I've been talking to Gregor about this recently. So I actually did something where I used his tool because I had a client that had they have a model that has about 500 reports connected to it. We ran it on the 100 most used, and I just wanted to see like how could Claude with like MCPs and other stuff, including yours, like how could it compare just to like basically ask it, find unused items, and then I compared it to the output for Measure Killer. It actually got it about 93% correct, but like you don't want 7% errors, right? Like, but I think it still vets to the fact that like with MCPs or tool or CLIs or anything where there is a vetted pattern of something where it's not just like writing scripts on the fly. That is, I think, a lot of benefit of having defined scripts in an MCP or via API or connecting via CLI or something where you know like this has been verified to work correctly, completely correctly, rather than mostly correct with a lot of those things. Because finding dependencies can be somewhat difficult given all the little spots, especially in the report layer, which is still improving, but far from perfect on its design for those. So yeah, long story short, I think it still gives, it shows a lot of merit on something where there's teams that are spending a lot of time making sure that the scripts are running perfectly for doing a few of those, because breaking changes in production is very, very bad news bears that we don't want to ever avoid. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it also comes down not just finding 100%, right, having 100% accuracy, but also we're coming back to token consumption, right? Because if it has to do it manually, if it has to scan all of the metadata manually, it has to check 10, 100 places to collect all of this data. And then after it does so, come to the conclusion, okay, it's mentioned here, 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 and here, right? With this, it doesn't have to, it goes to one place and it gets all of the data right away. Okay, this column is used as sort by here, mentioned here, and here, and here, and here.
Yeah. Well, the output I have from that, because it downloads all the metadata, which can, in some models that have cultures, that can be like 110,000 lines of code just for the model. But it was a 1.4 gigabyte config file that had the mapping. So because it downloaded the metadata from 100 reports plus the the model file plus the analysis, and it was very large. And I can't even imagine the amount of tokens that might have required otherwise if that was being done by like a cloud LLM.
Yes, 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 indeed. Okay. So impact analysis, just to close off, it goes through all of this semantic model. and it can show you where your column, measure, or any other object is being used, and therefore what will be impacted if you make changes. Right, but also, as we saw, it's also connected to policy engine. So there is a loop. Actually, it's not my idea, but it was a good idea. Sorry, I don't remember who suggested it, but not my idea. It closes the loop. If it sees that object can be impacted, you can block those deletions. Now let's move on to quality or testing. Okay. I think this topic doesn't get enough attention, to be honest. Again, I might be biased because 18 years ago, I started as QA engineer and was testing really complex oil and gas and telecom systems. So I feel like, specifically when it comes to Power BI, testing has been a mostly manual process up until this point. You open the report, you look at a few visuals to see, okay, looks right, nothing was impacted. I know that I used plenty of workarounds myself to set up some sort of automated testing, either via Power Automate or some other tools, right? But for the most part, what you do before deploying to production, you take a look at the report, you click through a few pages, and then you deploy, and then you pray. And then you wait. Then you wait for business to come knocking when something goes wrong. Is it your experience as well, or do you have some tricks with regards to that?
To praying to like the gods to make sure things don't break, or?
Well, not praying specifically, but testing.
Yeah.
When it comes to testing.
Yeah, I mean, I've honestly, like, I've had Claude help me with a lot of smoke tests, just to build it out. I keep it conversational, but I have learned that if you're using Claude, the / review is really useful. If you're using other LLMs, asking it to just come up with some ideas and maybe like rubber duck brainstorm a little bit, and have it proposed to you. Because I never ask it just, what do you think I should, like, how do you think a good smoke test is? It'll give you one recommendation. Like, I usually say, give me a few suggestions on what you think a good test for this is, and then I will kind of pick the one that I think fits best to it. And then you usually put that in as a rule to, like, all right, wait, if we're ever done, or if I say we're done, remind me we have to do this before I'm allowed to publish it. So like that's how I've got kind of implemented a bunch of testing on anything that I do, either with PBIP or just development in general.
Okay, fair. Anyways, without further ado, there is also unit test runner, which is part of the MCP. I think the best way to show it is actually through the app, which I recently released. It's a test runner app. Basically, they are both connected. The tests that you create in the app shared with the MCP, the tests that are created in the MCP shared with the app, so, and vice versa. So you can either create tests manually or run manually, but you can also ask LLM to create unit tests for your model, and then LLM can also use those tests as well during the sessions. Let me reload the model because we changed some things. So this is the desktop app that you also get as part of the SemanticOps, right? And what it allows you to do is to set up few types of tests for your semantic models. Now, everything that I'm showing you is also accessible through the MCP, right? So everything you see here, MCP also has access to. So it also can create those tests. create them, run them, whatever your heart desire.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, it can be kind of scary, right? Where do I start, right? So many different types, etc., etc. So similar to policy engine, which has built-in packs, this one also has built-in packs, which can be generated for your model. And some of them are, let's say, more metadata consistency, like having descriptions, whatnot. If you need that, for example, you likely need that if you tune model for Copilot, you likely need to add descriptions to all of your objects. So Copilot has more context about your model. But there are also things like referential integrity.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think every Power BI developer is familiar with blanks in their slicers. I think it happens to everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
So it will go through your model. It will find all of the columns which participate in relationships, and it will generate tests which will show you whether there are orphan keys for this relationship. And once you see so, you can start figuring out why is it happening. Well, we usually know why is it happening. It's when your dimension does not align with your fact table in terms of values. So there are some built-in packs which you can generate for your model. And once you're ready to go custom, there are 8 types to choose from, right? The first one is measure assertions, and I will go through it briefly. Not important. So you can select measure from your model, say average salary. You can select through the wizard, everything done here in desktop, through the wizard, certain context for measure assertion. Let's say I want it for year 2025. And you see the value. Okay, you want it to be equal to this value. And you create the test. Here is your test, create it. Let's run it. Great, it's running well. Simple example. Now, very good use.
I was just going to say, can you schedule any of these?
Schedule. Interesting.
So,
interesting idea.
A test that passes today, like referential integrity as an example, that is something that can show up in the future, because blanks might not be there today, but data quality can drift and it can show up later on, right? So it's the I've definitely done times before where I've had notebooks or others using like semantic link labs just set up schedules where data quality checks are ran to look for some of these things, just to like make sure that like the model itself isn't starting to get bad data, something happening where things are drifting away, where it's not like a target, but it is you're looking for problems in a model that otherwise could surface invisibly.
Great idea. Currently, no, right? Because I'm focusing more, okay, I'm deploying the model. There are a few use cases which I'm focusing on, and I will go through them. So specifically with desktop app, the focus is on, okay, I'm deploying a report. I want to run tests before I do so. Let me press run all. Let me make sure that, I don't know, total revenue for Q1 2025 stayed the same, which means hopefully, or not hopefully, which means that my changes have not broke anything, right? Or validating row level security, that despite all of the changes, still Europe sales only sees Europe sales, right? So this is one use case specifically for desktop app. Another use case, which I have been thinking about when I was adding it into MCP, because initially I added it into MCP. Only now week ago, I released desktop app, a company app is, and actually, let me find I had slide here about this.
Yes.
I think this is the slide. So basically, LLMs can really speed up your workflows, right? But you also want to close the agentic loop. Agentic loop is not closed unless you can also validate those changes, right? Currently, for the most part, again, the way it works, you make changes and then you pray, right? I wanted to be sure that if I give it model for refactoring, let's say there is badly optimized model and I wanted to refactor the model. How do I make sure that all of the visuals which were working previously, showing some data, would still show the same data afterwards?
Okay.
Unless, okay, you can of course wait until it finishes and then go and check manually. I am pretty sure things will be broken. LLM has no way to know that, right? Because it doesn't have access. So validation loop is not closed. Agentic loop is not closed. So basically, this was the idea behind adding unit test runner with those different types of tests. Is you have badly optimized model. Okay, you first set up tests. You take visuals. You set up tests for them. Model LLM refactors the model, and then it has a tool to validate whether results are the same after refactoring.
Okay.
And you can even, I'm coming back to the app, let's say, or to the model. Let's say I want to validate, okay, I have KPI card here. Simple example, but it can have multiple cards, multiple KPIs here. We cannot. But what you can do, you can go to Performance Analyzer. You can analyze this visual. What it will give you is the DAX query behind. Let's make it with some context, right, for Q2 2025. Performance Analyzer will give you DAX, which is executed behind this visual. Okay, so you take it, you copy it, and you add test for that. So in this case, it will be DAX assertion because I want to add custom DAX. Custom DAX. Okay. Okay. And you add test for that. Let's say you have more complex visual. In this case, let's take this customer's data table. I will do the same. So you want to be sure that this visual always produces, or within this filter context, it always produces this result. Okay, so you copy this.
Yep.
Okay, the X behind this visual. You go here, and you go to regression snapshot because it's a table with data. So you go to regression snapshot. Customers. And I will add it here. Okay, it works. And basically, there are a few options. Default is hash. It will generate, based on the output of this DAX query, it will generate a string. Let me capture it. And after your refactoring, so here's the, let me run all of the tests. Here's the one that I've added. Okay, it's passing. Now, if I change this, so let me change customers. I'll just change one value behind the data. Let's say this to 2. And let's go back here. It tells me to reload the model because it was changed externally. Let's do so. And let's rerun this test again, and it will fail now because data behind the DAX changed.
Yep.
Which means you can go through your report, you can go through the visuals, you can set up tests, and when LLM refactors your model, it has a way to verify whether this change broke something. And if it broke something, it means, okay, I need to take a step back, I need to redo it.
And it's nice to be able to do that from a manual smoke test perspective, for sure.
Yeah. But not just manually, you can also ask LLM to set up tests for your model, right? Again, it's coming back to, you can ask LLM to do things.
Exactly.
This case, you can tell it, okay, review my semantic model, identify, let's say, business critical measures or KPIs, and set up unit tests for those business critical KPIs within specific context, right? Like for closed period for 2025, right? The year has closed, so ideally data within 2025 does not change anymore, right? So
this is I see a lot of good use cases for this, for sure, for being able to just do easy testing, and the UI is rather nice. So a very, very nice new tool, for sure.
Yeah.
I will say, just for time and sake, because we will need to end at the top of the hour, just to give some context on anything you'd like to wrap up on or to kind of conclude with.
Yes, I have one more thing, very important.
Perfect.
Just a second. It also supports, as you can see here, row-level security validation, super important. You can connect to service models as well, and those tests will be shared with the same model in service. And you can validate row-level security under specific users. I think important use case, right, when you deploy, to make sure that, so here, let's see. Those tests were skipped in desktop because they're set up under specific user. But now I'm connected to service model, and it will validate, okay, yes, it works as expected under this user. So this is testing. Last thing I want to mention before we close off is this part on the slide is rollbacks.
Yeah.
Things will go wrong at some point. Things will go wrong. With LLMs, it will make some change you didn't want to. I had this happen to me. It corrupted some of the measures because it didn't read expressions fully, and so on and so forth. So another thing which is part of the MCP is all of the changes that you make through the MCP are saved and can be rolled back. And I will show quickly. I know we're running out of time.
No worries.
Transactions. Let me ask it, show me UI. Okay, so there is little UI. So with all of the changes that were made, some of those failed is where we did not approve it, or it was denied by the policy. So those are failed, but Let's add some measure, or let's delete some measure. What do we have here? Can we even delete something? Let's add measure. Add dummy measure. Very simple example. Okay, let's see. It's here. Dummy measure. Now I will roll it back, and ideally it should disappear. So let me see. Let me show me transactions. Let me ask it to update UI. Okay. With UI. Okay. Here's the measure that was added. It registered transaction, and I can roll it back. Confirm, roll back. Okay, confirmation, elicitation.
Yep.
So it says rolled back, and coming back to the table, this measure is no longer there. Obviously, it works both ways. If you delete the measure, it will restore the measure. If you delete the table, it will restore the table, or whatever the change was. So all of the changes that made through the MCP registered, and you can roll them back.
The time travel feature is rather nice to be able to do rollback for sure.
Yes.
Definitely a must need.
Yes.
Excellent.
All right. I have way more to show or tell,
Of
but
course.
I know we're out of time.
Part two
those
and
are,
three, yeah.
Those are the most important bits, main bits. I think I covered the majority of the important bits.
No, there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. I think from the MCP's perspective, the extensibility, a lot of the security and obfuscation for PII stuff is, I think, going to be really important for a lot of people that are dealing with cloud LLMs or anything else, where there is a risk of exposing some of that stuff up there. So I think that will make it easier for enterprise adoption. And then some of the testing stuff, I'm sure, will be really cool for people to use with the newer tool that you built. Any final links or words of wisdom or anything to impart to the audience before we sign off?
So you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yep.
You can find MCP on SemanticOps.dev. And yeah, see you around.
I will put LinkedIn chat. There we are. Excellent. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming on for this. This has been fun. I'm sure I'll have you back on again as your toolings continue to evolve and grow, and then maybe even do a collab one with you and Kurt on some of the other stuff that you guys have been working on. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking time out of your evening. And otherwise, I will see you either at some upcoming conference somewhere or just on another live stream.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Reed. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Have a nice one. Bye-bye.
Bye. Excellent.